So when we were talking yesterday about the philosophy, we came to the understanding that yoga teaches us that we are not the body, the mind, or the emotions. Well, how do you get out of that illusion? That's the scientific part. There is a process. There is a pragmatic, practical way to actually break free from this bondage, this attachment to our bodies. And how to get out of the illusion that you are the mind-body system and realize you're the divine? Simple. This is the same thing that the teacher said last night. Understand the mind, cleanse the mind, and transcend the mind. Everything is about your mind. There's nothing outside of your mind in your experience. Can you think of anything outside of your mind? No, because you have to think about it. It's your mind thinking about it. It's not possible to perceive anything outside of what is being filtered through the filter of your mind. So the entire world literally is being projected by your mind. What you experience is your own movie. Nobody else has experienced the same movie as you. And why is that happening for you? Because of your beliefs, because of your subconscious programming, and a whole host of things that are happening at the conscious and even subconscious levels. And as you understand this, you start to see that, remember when you had a bad day and everybody was frowning at you, and then the next day you were happy and everybody was looking in a different light? It's because of what's happening in your mind. And this has to be understood for you to be able to go beyond the suffering created by your own mind. There's no way out of dealing with this mind. There's no shortcut other than going into what's happening in here. And for most of us, I know in my youth, I was never taught to look at my mind. This is not something in the West that we really look into, at least in my upbringing. So let me tell you about a few things that will help us get to the understanding of how to work with the mind by working with the whole system. So a few concepts that will help you get a greater understanding of what the yoga science views as our relationship to the universe. Well, we are the microcosm. Everybody understand that word? Microcosm, macro. Micro meaning small, macro meaning large. We are essentially the microcosm and the universe is the macrocosm. And as I did say one time before, everything that exists out there exists here. Everything that exists here also exists out there. And as the Greeks said, know thyself and you shall know the universe. We cannot really understand anything else in this world completely until we have a really firm foundational understanding of what's happening inside ourselves. Because actually everything is a reflection of your consciousness. Your movie is because of your consciousness. It's not anybody else's responsibility. So this actually gives us great power. This allows us to then take charge of the movie that we are creating with our lives, with our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs. Now, first concept is microcosm, macrocosm. As above, so below. It's not just in yoga. Traditions from around the world have been saying the same thing. The next is from a scientific perspective. Yoga is resonance. This comes from physics. Does anybody know what resonance means? We use it often in these days. I resonate with that person. I resonate with that teaching. But when we come back to the original understanding of what the word resonance means, it means two things are vibrating at the same rate. So let's say there's a source of energy, and then there's a receiver. If we can put ourselves at the same vibration as the source, or if we receive the influence of the source, and we start vibrating at the same rate, then we are in resonance with the energy from the source. Now that is very important in our yoga practice. When we understand that everything in the universe is energy, then we learn how to use this mechanism. This is really like a machine, because if you do certain movements, if you do certain breathings, if you do certain practices, it's going to take you into certain forms of transformation. Now, we'll go deeper into this idea about what is resonance, but we're going to look at how we can connect to any energy that we want. And any energy exists everywhere at all times in the universe. All these subtle energies I'm talking about. So if you need more vitality, you can plug into the earth energy. If you need more creativity, you can plug into that of the universe. You can plug into more love, unconditional love. You can plug into the energy that allows you to speak truth, to understand truth. There's an energy of insightful wisdom beyond just the rational mind that we can actually plug into, and people call those paranormal powers. They're not actually anything that is so extraordinary if you understand the science of yoga. It just takes some applied science to be able to activate these powers that are actually inherent within all human beings. It's just a matter of opening that door to connect to that energy. So the big questions that come as we look into the science, now again, this is the big picture. We're going to go back into details. But understanding the self is understanding the mind, is understanding who we are even beyond the mind. And these have been some of the biggest questions that have been asked by humankind since they've started being conscious of their existence in this physical realm. So we've all asked these questions at some point, right? Who am I? Okay, yeah, my name's Jason. I'm a guy who was born in New York City. But is there more to me than just the names and the labels? Where did I come from? Not talking about New York City, but where did I come from before I came into this body, into this existence? And where am I going? Meaning, what happens when this body is done? Is there something afterward? Is there something that continues beyond the physical body? And then one of the greatest questions that I ever had is, why am I here? What's the reason? What's the purpose? Not only for the whole existence of the universe, but what's my role within this massive, incredible, infinite picture that I am perceiving? So, what yoga tells us is that we are actually Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat is being, Chit, consciousness, and Ananda is bliss. So we are beings that are conscious, and in that consciousness we can experience, and our ultimate essence is actually a blissful state of love. Now, that sounds really nice, but what happens when we're suffering with our thoughts and our physical pain and all of these other emotions that seem to swallow us and we can't get out and we don't see beyond this illusion of our attachment to our body? Well, again, we're going to go into how we can do these things. But this is what yoga tells us we really are. Buddhism says very similar things. The bodhicitta, the illumined mind, the blissful state. All of these things are different terminology to express the same ideas. Okay, now here's where I think it gets interesting in yoga, because it breaks it down into a very scientific approach to not just the physical body, but the subtle bodies. And what are subtle bodies? Well, in English, in Sanskrit, we call them koshas. A kosha could be like a sheath. A sheath is something you put a sword into, or a layer, like the layers of an onion. Or what are those Russian dolls that you take one out and there's 6 more inside, and then you take it out and that's more inside? I don't know if you've seen those, but this idea that we are more than just the physical body, and we can talk about them as the 5 bodies or the 5 koshas. So the first one, and I know I'm getting up, but that's fine. First one is called the Annamaya kosha. Now that's a long word in Sanskrit. You don't have to understand Sanskrit, but I will break it down for you to understand. Anna means food. Maya is the illusion. Or we could say this is the level of the illusion of the body made of food. So this physical body, we already know that, right? Everything that we put into our bodies, that we eat internally, creates this physical body. So this is another reason why yoga has this tremendous emphasis on being clear about what it is that you're actually eating and putting into your system at the physical level. Now, this is a very dense thing. I can feel it, I can touch it, it's tangible to my senses, yes? Everybody knows they have a body simply by touching and looking and seeing and feeling. What we're going to do is go into subtler vibrations. So this is a slower vibration. It's material. This is a very slow, dense vibration. But if we go to the next level of vibration, more subtle, we go to the energetic. And this is often called the pranamaya kosha. Now, prana is a word that we're going to go into a lot. That's the same thing as chi or ki from Japan. It's the idea that everything exists because of this energetic matrix. And it's the matrix that's creating the physical reality, not the other way around. So the energy is the blueprint for your body. The energy is the blueprint for everything that's happening. When we tap into the understanding of prana, this is what we do when we look at pranayama, when we do the breathing. It's working with the prana, or they call it life force. Biomagnetic energy in modern science. There's a lot of ways to refer to this, but it's all about that subtle energy that exists everywhere and is the foundation of this material world. Now, if we go to the next subtle level, we look at Mano-maya kosha. Mana in Sanskrit is mind, or manas. So we break it down. This is the layer or sheath or body, the illusion of the mental body. So we go from something gross to more subtle, to more subtle, to more subtle. Now, this I really wanted to use for the picture more than the words, because there's different schools that use different terminologies. What I prefer to say is, instead of just thinking of this as the mental sheath, it's also the mental emotional layer. So the mind, the emotions, are thoughts or energies, and this is even more subtle, of course, than just the pranic or biomagnetic energy. So we're going to talk about more of this in a moment, but the next one is called Vijnanamaya Kosha, and this is the higher mind, the mind of abstract thinking. It's different than the lower mind that's perceiving things and rationalizing. This is the mind that has the wisdom, and as we go even higher, we get to the Anandamaya Kosha. Ananda is a very famous word that you'll hear a lot, and when you hear about Swami's names, they usually end with Ananda, because Ananda means bliss. So we talked about what we were, Sat Chit Ananda. Ananda is bliss. We are beings of bliss. So if we look at Swami Vivekananda, that is the bliss of discernment, or Swami Yogananda, the bliss of union. And everybody who has an Ananda at their name, it's because they have reached that state conceptually. We can't guarantee by our just looking at them, but the idea is that they have reached a state of connection and awareness of that blissful state that is all of our natural being, actually. So the Anandamaya Kosha is the fifth of these koshas, the most subtle, and this is the body that never changes. It's eternally blissful, it's eternally perfect, it doesn't evolve, nothing can affect it, nothing can change it. Once we get to these higher levels, that's the gateway to being able to experience the higher levels of consciousness, the states of bliss. So by energies of consciousness, Brahman, which is a name for God in Sanskrit, is masked. From that matter is born, and from matter, life and mind and the worlds. This is from a sacred text, the Mundaka Upanishad. Any questions? Okay, it'll get more depth into this in a moment. Here's just another way to look at it. Some different words that I like as well. We can go to the physical body, energy body, which we talked about, and some schools break it into the emotional body, then the wisdom body, and the bliss body. So you can see a little differentiation here between this slide and the last slide. Don't get too caught up in the names. The understanding is that we have 5 bodies, different levels of subtlety, and through these yoga practices, we can work with every single one of these. Not the 5th body, of course, because that's not changing. But by balancing, purifying, and opening these bodies to the universal connection, we can thereby, at some point, step into this awareness of our blissful state. So the koshas, like we said, sheaths or layers. We have 5 dimensions of existence. We call them 5 bodies to make it easy in English. And they interpenetrate each other. They're not separate. So this physical body is 3-dimensional. And the energetic matrix that is the foundation for this physical body interpenetrates every part of the physical reality. So there's a more subtle reality that we can't see, and it can't even be measured by modern science very well yet. And it's that level that is connecting everything with everything else. So the physical body, let's go back a moment. It's through this energy body, through our breathing, through our pranayama, through work with the prana, the energy, that we connect the physical to these other states of existence within our own being. That's why pranayama, breathing, is more than just for health. It's much more. This can help you access higher states of consciousness just through breath, because the breath is the gateway. It's how we are connected from physical to the other subtle dimensions. Now, just to go back a little bit, Annamaya Kosha, as I said, is the physical body. Anna is food. Maya could mean full of. That's another interpretation. Or Kosha is layer. So this is our physical body. What do we do to help maintain the physical body? It's already there. You can see it. You have to have food. You have to have water, for sure. Sunshine, energy from the sun is helping to keep us alive. And of course, yoga can keep the physical body strong. There are other things we can do, but this is an easy summation. Now, the pranamaya kosha, the life energy, the prana, this is the critical bridge between the physical kosha and other koshas. This is a link between individual soul and the universe through koshas. Remember, you guys will have access to all these slides. You don't have to write it all down unless you want to. So all yoga cleanses this kosha. When we're doing physical movements, that's affecting our energetic body because we have what are called nadis or channels. In Chinese medicine, what do they call them? meridians, right? And they talk about 12 main meridians in Chinese, and there's more, but they talk about 12 main meridians in traditional Chinese medicine. In yoga, we talk about 72,000 energy channels that interconnect everything to everything else, but we focus mainly in our yoga practice on 3 of the major nadis, and we'll go into that in greater depth. Now, the next one, the Mano Maya Kosha. This is the mind, cognitive activities, practical intellect, the 5 senses. The way to work with the mind, according to yoga philosophy, if you want to work on evolving your mind, not just filling it with nonsense from mass media, we study. We study the sacred text. We study ourself. The studying of sacred text is revealing more about who we are. That's what the sacred texts do, is help us to understand ourself. Now the koshas, Vijnanamaya kosha, this is the higher mind, as I was saying, the psychic intellect or intuition. Now this is interesting because this is where the karma is stored. And like I said in yesterday's lecture, karma is an energy and it can be manipulated. So we are not stuck with one predetermined path in life. We have the possibility to actually alter our destination and how we get there through these practices of yoga and other practices too, but we're focusing here on yoga. Now, all the karma is stored here, and actually all the ignorance is also located here. It's called a vidya. And our spiritual ignorance is what? I want you guys to think a little bit and interact with me today, okay? The spiritual ignorance means that what are we ignorant of? Nobody? You guys are smart beings. I know you have an answer for me. You're just being shy. That's fine. What are we ignorant of? We're ignorant of our union with the divine. We are ignorant of the fact that we are not the body, emotions, and mind. We are ignorant in our attachments to the senses, to the emotions, and to the mind. So that's what they talk about as ignorance. This is the capacity through this level of mind to reach enlightenment. This is the access to the highest state. Now, the Anandamaya Kosha, as I said, is the bliss body, okay? And that is always perfect, never changes. And there have been moments in your life when time stood still and you felt blissful, yes? And suddenly there was no more you. You had dissolved into whatever experience so fully. You know, he talks about flow, and he's going to share more about that, Jin. And what that always reminds me of is, in English, and the term I used growing up is being in the zone. You know, in sport, when you're just... Like, I used to surf a lot, and when you're in the wave and everything's happening, you're no longer thinking. There's no time. Everything is expanded, and your senses are so heightened by being so present. And this is the same as meditation. It's just being in meditation and movement. Like some people who are artists, they reach that inspiration, and the art is flowing through them. They're not thinking about what to paint next. It's happening as an extension of the universal energy flowing through them, creating through them. We are vessels. We are channels for this energy to flow through and allow the universe to manifest through this being. And this happens for musicians. It happens anytime you get in that flow state or in the zone, when time stops and the mind is no longer, the lower mind is no longer in control. The ego is not in control anymore. So we have had those experiences, and that's a good sign. It doesn't mean that it's only reserved for the monks who live in the Himalayas all their lives. All of us have access to these higher states. Okay, let's go back to prana. What is prana? This is the energy, again, that is the matrix or blueprint for everything in the universe. Chi or ki. Living manifestation of the divine. It is said that in yoga and in other of these esoteric teachings that the divine energy is what is flowing into this creation. And it's the divine sustaining us in the form of prana. We can't live here without energy. We can't exist without certain forms of energy. And all of the source of all of these energies is what? None other than the source of the universe, the source of creation. We could call it cosmic consciousness, the divine, whatever it is you like, God. This is what's sustaining us, is the energy, the matrix of the energy. Now this prana, again, is the link between the soul and the physical body. Guys, I want you to understand this, very important. This is the link between the physical body and the soul. So if you would like to connect to your soul, consciously aware of that connection, then pranayama and working with the energy through yoga is a very powerful practice. Tai Chi is another form of this. the Qigong practices, meditation, because meditation is working with the mind, which is a form of energy as well. So there's so many different tools available to us, and that's good because we are people of different temperaments. We have different capacities, different skills, and even different challenges. So there's a way to find a path through this science that will give you the tools that you need. It's not one size fits all. Not everybody should do the same meditation or the same pranayama or the same physical postures. We all have the opportunity to pick what works best for us. Take your skill. Maybe you're really good mental concentration. Then you can use that skill to develop your mind and develop your ability to connect to the deeper levels of your consciousness. Perhaps you have a lot of vitality and you really love moving the body. Then maybe the physical practices are what will work best for you. And some people are drawn to study. Some people are drawn to doing more breath work. There's always the understanding that you have a certain skill set with the body and circumstances you've been born into. So use the skills that you have instead of trying to force yourself into something that somebody else is doing because they say it works for them. Try to find the techniques that are going to help you evolve the most quickly and the most efficiently. So breathing is a process through which you receive prana from the universe, but prana is not breath. Oxygen, they say that oxygen is what we're breathing in. Oxygen is riding on the prana. Oxygen is more gross, it's more physical, we could say, than prana. Prana is more subtle. So when we're breathing in energy, and in that energetic flow, which we're inhaling and exhaling, there is oxygen coming in through the breath. But I have to help you to understand that breath is not prana, okay? So food, sun, water, barefoot on earth, breathing, these are all ways to collect prana. And they're very emphatic actually in yoga that we should try to get a little bit of sun every day, connect with all of the elements of the universe every day because this is made of all the elements. And thereby we can connect to a source that helps to bring us more vitality, more fulfillment of those energies within our own being. Walking barefoot on the earth is excellent because so many of us who live in cities are completely disconnected. We walk on pavement, we have plastic shoes, and we just keep putting more and more layers. We live in apartments on the 3rd floor, 10th floor, 20th floor. The more layers we put between us and the earth energy, the more disconnected we are from the source of our vitality. So you can see how important this is to get out of the city, or at least find the park in the city, kick your shoes off and plant them on the earth and literally absorb that earth energy every day. And this will keep us more vital because the earth is the yin energy that gives the physical body its vitality. So the prana is actually what manages all the biomechanical processes. Nothing will happen without this energy. There cannot be life, there cannot be biology without the prana, without the life force. Any questions? I already got started up, pretty fired up, so slow down. Okay, good. How long, what time do I have till?
What time is it right now?
4:20.
4:20? Maybe 5.
Okay, perfect. So prana, ayama. We looked at prana, now let's look at this word ayama. Ayama has different understandings. I'll come right back. Ayama literally means, depending on which translation you look at or which context it's in, Sanskrit's an incredible language that one word can have 10 meanings, 20 meanings, 30 meanings, depending on the context in the sentence in which it's being expressed. But in this time, ayama can mean to expand or to lengthen. So what are we doing is every time we breathe, we are expanding the energy within ourselves. Now, I've already talked to you in class about this. The deeper you breathe, the healthier you are. The deeper you breathe, the longer you live. In the yoga texts, they're not measuring lifespan by years. They measure lifespan by number of breaths. So if you're breathing really fast most of the time and you're stressed out, that's many breaths in one day. The idea is that the slower you breathe, the longer you live. Look in nature. Look at a turtle or some of these other animals that have very long lifespans. They breathe very slowly. Look at the hummingbird. You know, crazy, small animal, so active, breathing so fast, and it has a very short lifespan. So yoga has always looked to nature to understand our relationship with nature, but also ourselves and our place in that natural environment in which we're living. So through the breath control, you connect with the subtle energies. You got the message, guys? The breath is the key. Okay, and this isn't really taught in a lot of the modern classes that are so attached to physical body appearance and being flexible and attaining a certain posture, doing cool handstands and all that, which is wonderful. Nothing wrong with it. But if we're not accessing the deeper levels of yoga, it's like scratching the surface of what's available to the science. So the breath is the key to go deeper into yoga. There's no shortcut around it. If you can do asana for an hour a day and stretch your body, you'll get energetic effects. But if you do pranayama, the breathing practices, it is exponentially more powerful and more effective and more efficient than just stretching the body. So if I want to bring balance to my emotions and my mind, I can do asana for a half hour, or I could breathe for 10 minutes. It depends on what you want to do. They'll have different feelings perhaps, but know that the asana, the breathing, is actually what's going to work even better at the subtle levels, the pranic level, the energetic level, the emotional, and the mental levels.